AWSS3Bucketforlogsandoutput Description store logs and outputs from applications and data processing jobs. Prerequisites: AWS account. An AWS account is required to create and access S3 buckets. S3 bucket and S3 bucket needs to be created to store the logs and outputs. Use cases: store logs from applications, capture logs from various applications, including web servers, databases, and custom applications, for debugging and analysis. Store output from data processing jobs. Store the results of data processing jobs, such as transformed data, analysis reports, or machine learning models. Steps: configure applications to write logs to S3. Configure applications to send logs directly to the designated S3 bucket. This often involves using libraries or tools that support S3 logging. Configure data processing jobs to write outputs to S3. Configure data processing jobs to store their output in the specified S3 bucket. This may involve setting up output paths or using S3 as a data sink. Challenges and fixes: bucket permissions. Ensuring that the correct entities have access to the S3 bucket. Fixes: configuring policies to grant access to specific users, roles, or services. Define permissions based on actions allowed, read, write, delete, and the resources to which access is granted. Specific files or folders within the bucket. Cost: managing the cost of storing logs and outputs in S3. Fixes: use S3 lifecycle policies to archive or delete old logs automatically. This helps reduce storage costs by moving inactive data to less expensive storage tiers or deleting it entirely. Implement strategies like data compression to reduce the storage footprint. Data retention: deciding how long to store logs and outputs. Fixes: use S3 lifecycle policies to archive or delete old logs automatically. This helps manage data retention by defining rules for moving data to different storage classes or deleting it after a certain period. Implement strategies for data backup and disaster recovery to ensure data availability in case of accidental deletion or corruption. Data access: controlling access to logs and outputs. Fixes: use S3 pre-signed URLs to grant temporary access to specific data for a limited time. This allows external parties to access data without granting full access to the S3 bucket. Configuring policies to restrict access based on user roles and permissions. Data security: protecting logs and outputs from unauthorized access or data breaches. Fixes: enable S3 encryption at rest to protect data while stored in S3. Utilize server-side encryption (SSE) with AWS KMS to manage and rotate encryption keys securely. Use S3 bucket policies to restrict access to the bucket and its contents based on specific conditions. Implement data loss prevention (DLP) measures to detect and prevent sensitive data from being stored in S3. Data consistency: ensuring data consistency and integrity. Fixes: use S3 event notifications to trigger data processing more analysis workflows. This ensures data consistency by responding to changes in data stored in S3. Implement data validation mechanisms to verify data integrity after upload or processing. Implement data backup and replication strategies to ensure data availability and consistency across different locations.